The alarms on the USS Frontier would not stop. Red lights flashed across the bridge as Admiral Valerie Wright gripped the edge of the command console. The ship shook again. Another hit. "Shields at 23%, called out Lieutenant Sam Miller. His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white on the controls. Admiral Wright looked at the main screen. The Void Collective ships moved in perfect formation. There were so many of them, too many. Their black hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them look like moving holes in space. Each one was twice the size of the largest coalition. "Vessel, evasive pattern Delta," Wright ordered. "Get us behind the moon of Proxima 4. Commander Eric Jones nodded and relayed the orders. The USS Frontier turned sharply, engines straining as they pushed away from the battle. Behind them, 3 more coalition ships exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. "Admiral, the Arcturus. Fleet is retreating," Commander Jones reported. "The Centauri League ships have already jumped to hyperspace." Wright closed her eyes for a brief moment. The coalition was falling apart. 17 different alien species had joined together to form the Galactic Coalition 50 years ago. Humans had only been invited to join 40 years ago, after they proved they could travel faster than light. Many of the older species still looked down on humans as primitive and unpredictable. "Status report on the rest of our fleet," Wright demanded. Officer Kelly Rodriguez swiped through several screens at her station. "The USS Horizon is heavily damaged. USS Dauntless reports engine failure. The Delvian cruisers are holding position at Sector 7, but they're outnumbered." The Void Collective had appeared 6 months ago. Nobody knew where they came from. They didn't communicate. They simply attacked, pushing through coalition space with frightening speed. They had already destroyed 3 star systems. "Admiral," Commander Jones said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "We can't win this fight. Not here. Not now." Wright knew he was right. The Void Collective's technology was beyond anything the Coalition had. Their weapons cut through the best shields like they weren't even there. Their ships moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. "Order the retreat," she said finally. "All ships fall back to Earth's defense perimeter." The bridge crew worked quickly to relay the orders. The Frontier turned and prepared to jump to hyperspace. "Admiral," Officer Rodriguez called out, "I'm receiving a message from Coalition High Command." The main screen changed to show Admiral Paul Garcia, the human representative on the Coalition Defense Council. His face was grim. "Valerie, it's worse than we thought. The Void Collective has broken through at Tau Ceti as well. They'll reach Sol System in less than a week." Wright felt the blood drain from her face. Earth, home, 7 billion. Humans who had only recently learned they weren't alone in the galaxy. "What does the Council suggest?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Garcia looked away for a moment. "The Council is divided. Some members suggest we focus our remaining forces on defending their core worlds. They want to abandon Earth." Wright said flatly, "Not officially. But resources are being redirected." Garcia leaned closer to the camera. "The Arcturus Republic has already withdrawn their support. The Centauri League sent their regrets." Wright's hands curled into fists. "So that's it? Humanity joined their coalition, followed their rules, and now when we need help, they abandon us? They're scared, Valerie. We've never faced an enemy like this." The ship shuddered as it entered hyperspace. The stars outside stretched into lines of light. "What are our options?" Wright asked. Garcia sighed. "Officially, we're to fall back and join the defense fleet at Proxima Centauri. Unofficially, ... He hesitated. "I've been speaking with some of the other human representatives. We think it's time we tried something different." "Different how?" "The coalition forces all use the same tactics, the same strategies. They've been fighting wars the same way for thousands of years, and they're losing. Wright understood immediately. You want to try human tactics. Garcia nodded. The other species have always been wary of our ... unpredictability. Maybe it's time to show them why. The Council would never approve. That's why I'm not asking the Council. I'm asking you. Garcia's image flickered slightly. We need someone who understands how humans fight when their backs are against the wall. Someone who doesn't play by the rules. Wright thought for a moment. Ben Carter? She said finally. Garcia looked surprised. Carter? He's been retired for 10 years. After that business on Tau Ceti, the Coalition practically forced him out. Because he didn't follow their precious rulebook, Wright said. And he saved an entire colony when everyone else said couldn't be done. He's a farmer now, somewhere in Idaho, I think. Wright straightened her uniform. Then I need to speak with a farmer. After the call ended, Wright turned to Commander Jones. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Jones looked confused. Admiral, our orders are to rendezvous with the fleet at Proxima Centauri. Consider this a detour, Commander. Wright stared at the tactical display, watching the Void collectives advance. They moved like a perfect machine, every ship in exact formation. We need to try something the Void collective won't expect. What's that, Admiral? Human unpredictability. Wright walked to the view screen, watching the streaks of light as they traveled through hyperspace. Get me a secure channel to Earth when we arrive. Not to command. I need to speak with Benjamin Carter. The farmer? Jones raised an eyebrow. Former Captain Benjamin Carter, Wright corrected. The man who broke every rule in the book and saved 10,000 lives. As the USS Frontier raced toward Earth, the Void Collective continued its advance. Their perfect formations never faltered. Their tactics never changed. They had crushed the forces of 17 advanced alien civilizations, but they had never faced humans fighting as only humans could fight. When the rules didn't work, humans changed the rules. When the odds were impossible, humans did the impossible. Wright looked at the star map one more time. Earth had less than a week before the Void Collective arrived. Their only hope lay with a disgraced former captain who now grew corn and raised chickens. When faced with defeat, Wright murmured to herself, we make one final call. Benjamin Carter wiped sweat from his forehead as he fixed the broken tractor. The Idaho sun beat down on his back. His dog, Max, lay in the shade of a nearby tree, watching lazily. Carter had been working since dawn. The farm didn't run itself. Tightened the last bolt and stood up, stretching his back. 10 years of farming had kept him strong, but at 55, he felt the aches more than he used to. His hands were rough now, covered in calluses from farm work instead of from gripping weapons. Carter walked to the water pump and splashed cold water on his face. As he did, he noticed something strange. Max was on his feet, ears perked up, staring. At the sky, Carter looked up. A small shuttle was descending toward his farm. Carter's hand automatically moved to his hip, where he once carried a weapon. He hadn't seen a military shuttle in years, not since he'd walked away from that life. The shuttle landed in an empty field, sending his chickens into a panic. The door opened, and a woman in a Coalition admiral's uniform stepped out. Carter recognized her immediately. Valerie Wright, he said, not moving to greet her. Last time I saw you, you were a commander. Admiral Wright walked toward him, her boots collecting mud with each step. Been a long time, man. Not long enough for the Coalition to send an admiral to my farm. Carter crossed his arms. What do they want now? Come to arrest me for some old mission they didn't like? Wright shook her head. I came to ask for your help. Carter laughed, a short, harsh sound. My help? The Coalition made it very clear they didn't want my kind of help. Too unpredictable, too risky, not aligned with established protocols. He turned back to his tractor. I have crops to tend. The Void Collective has broken through our defenses, Wright said. They've destroyed 3 star systems already. They'll reach Earth in less than a week. Carter paused. The what collective? They appeared 6 months ago. No communication, no demands. Just attack after attack. Their ships are more advanced than anything we've seen. They move in perfect formation, like they're all controlled by one mind. Carter looked at her. And the mighty coalition can't stop them? 17 advanced species with their perfect tactics and their rulebooks? We're losing, Ben. Wright's voice was steady, but Carter could hear the fear in it. The Arcturus Republic has pulled back to defend their core worlds. The Centauri League has abandoned us. So when the aliens who looked down on humans for 40 years are finally in trouble, they decide humans might be useful after all. Carter turned back to his work. Wright stepped closer. Not they, Ben. Me. I'm here because I know what you can do. I was at Tau Ceti. Carter's hand stilled. Tau Ceti. 10 years ago. A mining colony under attack by pirates. The Coalition fleet, sent to help, was held back by an ion storm. Carter had taken his ship, the USS Defiant, through the storm anyway, breaking every rule in the book, losing half his crew, but saving 10,000 colonists. The Coalition had called it reckless, stripped him of his command, forced him into retirement. That was a long time ago, Carter said quietly. We need that kind of thinking now. The Void Collective ... They're like nothing we've ever seen. But they're predictable. Perfect formations. Perfect responses. They counter every standard tactic in the Coalition playbook. Carter looked at her. And you think I can help because I don't follow the playbook? I think you can help because you write your own. Carter walked to his farmhouse, Wright following. Inside, he went to a cabinet and unlocked it. He pulled out an old military tablet, covered in dust. He turned it on, and it lit up with the Coalition emblem. Show me what we're dealing with, he said. Wright connected her own device to his. The screen filled with images of the Void Collective ships, black, angular vessels that moved in precise patterns. Battle reports showed Coalition ships being destroyed, one after another. Carter studied the footage carefully. They're too perfect, he murmured. What do you mean? Look at their formations, their responses. There's no variation, no adaptation. Everything is ... calculated. Carter zoomed in on one section. They respond the same way every time to the same situation, like they're following a program. Wright nodded. The Coalition tactics are all in the database. Thousands of years of warfare, reduced to algorithms and probabilities. And the Void Collective has figured them all out. Carter sat back in his chair. They know exactly how you'll respond. They're counting on it. So what do we do? Carter smiled for the first time. We do what humans have always done when the odds are impossible. We cheat. Wright raised an eyebrow. The Coalition doesn't cheat. That's why they're losing. Carter stood up. How did you get here? Official channels. Wright shook her head. Unofficially. I told the fleet I was making a detour to check on Earth's defenses. Good. The less the Coalition knows, the better. Carter looked out the window. At his farm, the life he had built after the Coalition had cast him aside. If I do this, I do it my way. No rules, no protocols. No asking for permission. That's exactly why I'm here. Carter walked to another cabinet and opened it. Inside was an old Coalition uniform. He hadn't worn it in 10 years. I'll need a ship, he said. Not a big one. Something fast. And a crew that can think for themselves, not just follow orders. The USS Frontier is in orbit. My crew is handpicked. Carter nodded. I'll need access to all the data on the Void Collective. Everything we have. Done. Carter looked at his farm one last time. Max watched him from the doorway, as if sensing. Something was changing. I can't promise I'll save the day, Valerie. The Coalition didn't want me when things were going well. I'm not sure what I can do now that everything's falling apart. Wright put a hand on his shoulder. You can do what? You've always done, Ben. The impossible. 3 hours later, Carter locked up his farmhouse. He left food and water for Max and asked his neighbor to look after the animals and the farm route as the shuttle lifted off. Carrying them back to the frontier, Carter watched his farm grow smaller below him. He didn't know if he would ever see it. Again, the Void Collective doesn't know what they're in for, Wright said, breaking the silence. Carter looked at her. Neither does the Coalition. The USS Frontier hung in space above Earth. Through the viewing window, Carter could see the blue planet below. It looked peaceful from up here. No sign of the danger that was coming. Carter stood in the ship's war room. Admiral Wright had gathered. The senior officers. Some looked at Carter with respect. Others with doubt. They had all heard stories about the former captain who broke rules and got results. Not all the stories were good. This is Benjamin Carter, Wright said to the room. He's here to help us fight the Void Collective. A tall officer with commander stripes stepped forward. With all due respect, Admiral, what can one retired captain do against an enemy that's defeating our entire fleet? Carter looked at demands. Name tag, Commander Eric Jones. The same thing humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy, Commander, Carter replied. Find a weakness and exploit it. Carter turned to the main display screen. Show me the latest battle footage. Officer Kelly Rodriguez tapped on her tablet. The screen filled with images of Coalition ships fighting the Void Collective. The black. Ships moved in perfect formation, responding to each Coalition tactic with precise counterattacks. Carter watched carefully. Pause there, he said, pointing to a moment when 3 Void ships adjusted their position. Play it at half speed. The footage continued slowly. Carter nodded to himself. Now show me an earlier battle. From when they first appeared, Rodriguez pulled up older footage. Carter compared the 2 battles. They're using the exact same patterns, he said finally. The same responses to the same situations. 6 months apart, and there's no variation. Commander Jones frowned. That's just good tactics. No, Carter shook his head. Good tactics adapt. These don't. It's like they're following a program. A very advanced program, but still a program. Carter turned to Admiral Wright. The Void Collective ships aren't controlled by living beings. At least, not directly. They're automated. Possibly eye-driven. Wright looked surprised. How can you? Be sure? Living creatures make small mistakes. They show creativity. They adapt. These ships don't. They follow patterns perfectly, but they're always the same patterns. Carter pointed to the screen again. Look at how they respond to a flanking maneuver. Always the same, perfect, but predictable. The officers in the room looked at each other. If Carter was right, they were fighting machines, not aliens. So what do we do with this information? Wright asked. Carter smiled. We introduce them to human unpredictability. We do things no algorithm can predict because they make no logical sense. He walked to the tactical display table in the center of the room. I need to speak with any engineers and communication specialists you have. And I need access to Earth's old military archives. Wright nodded. Whatever you need. For the next 12 hours, Carter worked with the ship's crew. He pulled up old battle tactics from Earth's history. Not the neat, organized tactics taught at Coalition academies, but desperate gambits used by outmatched forces. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the Battle of Agincourt, The Ghost Fleet in World War II. Lieutenant Sam Miller, the ship's chief engineer, looked confused. These tactics are primitive. The Void Collective would tear us apart. Not if we combine them with our technology, Carter explained. The Void Collective has never seen these approaches. Their algorithms are based on standard coalition tactics. In the communications room, Carter worked with Officer Rodriguez. We need to change how our ships communicate, he told her. The Void Collective is intercepting and predicting our standard communication patterns. What do you suggest? She asked. Carter pulled up an old Earth communication system. Morse code, transmitted via Takan pulses. The Void Collective won't recognize it as communication. Rodriguez looked doubtful. That's centuries old. Exactly. Sometimes the best way forward is to go backward. By the time Carter finished, a new plan was taking shape. It wasn't neat. It wasn't organized. It broke every rule in the Coalition Tactical Manual. But it just might work. Carter presented the plan to Admiral Wright and her senior officers. We split our remaining ships into small groups, he explained, pointing to the tactical display. Each group attacks a different Void Collective position, not their main fleet, but their supply lines and smaller outposts. Commander Jones frowned. Our forces are already stretched thin. We're not trying to win through force, Carter explained. We're trying to confuse them, break their patterns, make them respond to multiple threats that don't follow their predicted scenarios, Carter continued. We'll use civilian transport ships fitted with jammers to disrupt their communications. Each attack group will use different tactics from different periods of Earth's history adapted to space warfare. Officer Rodriguez raised her hand. The plan requires our ships to act independently, without central coordination. That's not how coalition forces operate. That's exactly why it will work, Carter said. The Void Collective expects perfect coordination. We'll give them chaos instead. Some of the alien officers in the room looked skeptical. A Delvian officer with purple skin and 4 arms stood up. This plan goes against all established coalition doctrine, he said. It is ... disorganized. Yes, Carter agreed. Organized. Chaos. Humans excel at it. Admiral Wright studied the plan. It's risky. We'll be abandoning conventional tactics that have served the coalition for centuries. Those conventional tactics are failing against the Void Collective, Carter pointed out. They know all the moves in your playbook. It's time to write a new one. Wright looked around the room. We have 4 days before the Void Collective reaches Earth. We've tried everything else. I say we try Captain Carter's way. One by one, the officers nodded their agreement. Even the doubtful ones. They had run out of options. There's one more thing, Carter said. I need access to Earth's old military archives. There's a device I want to rebuild. Something that hasn't been used in centuries. What kind of device? Wright asked. Carter smiled. A chaos engine. Something no algorithm can predict. 4 days wasn't much time to prepare for battle against a superior enemy. But it was enough time for humans to do what they did best. Improvise, adapt, and find ways to beat impossible odds. As the crew of the USS Frontier prepared to implement Carter's plan, Earth below them continued to turn, unaware that its fate rested on the shoulders of a retired captain and his crazy ideas. The day of battle arrived too quickly. The Void Collective fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, their black ships moving in perfect formation. Sensors on the outer planets detected their approach. Earth had hours, not days. On the bridge of the USS Frontier, Carter stood beside Admiral Wright. He wore his old uniform, though it felt strange after 10 years. Around them, the crew worked at their stations, faces tense but determined. All ships report ready, Commander Jones announced. Coalition forces are in position. Carter nodded. And the civilian transports? In position and ready, Officer Rodriguez confirmed. Jammers are active but dormant. Carter looked at the tactical display. His plan was in motion. Instead of gathering all their forces for a last stand at Earth, he had spread them throughout the solar system. Small battle groups hid behind moons and asteroids. Civilian ships, normally not involved in combat, had been fitted with jamming devices and positioned along likely approach routes. The Void Collective will expect us to make a stand at Earth, Carter explained. They'll be prepared for our standard defensive formation. Wright looked at him. But we won't be there. Exactly. Carter smiled. We'll be everywhere else. The main screen showed the Void Collective fleet approaching. Their ships moved as one. A perfect attack formation designed to counter Earth's defenses. But those defenses weren't where they expected them to be. They're scanning for our fleet, Jones reported. They're slowing their advance. Carter nodded. They're confused. Their algorithms predicted our defensive position, but they can't find it. Now? Wright asked. Now, Carter confirmed. Wright gave the order. All ships, commence Operation Chaos. Across the solar system, coalition ships emerged from hiding. But instead of forming up into standard attack formations, each group moved differently. Some charged directly at the Void Collective. Others performed complex maneuvers that made no tactical sense. The civilian transports activated their jammers, flooding communication channels with noise. On the tactical display, Carter watched as the perfect formation of the Void Collective faltered for the first time. They're trying to adapt, he said, but they can't predict our movements because there's no pattern to predict. One group of coalition ships used an ancient Earth tactic called crossing the T, positioning themselves to fire across the front of the enemy line. Another group executed a pincer movement from behind a moon. A third dove straight through the enemy formation, breaking it apart. The Void Collective ships tried to respond, but each time they adjusted to counter one tactic, another group hit. Them from a different direction, with a completely different approach. It's working, Wright said, amazement in her voice. They're breaking formation. The Morse code messages tapped between coalition ships confused the Void Collective further. They couldn't intercept and predict orders they couldn't understand. But the Void Collective was still powerful. Their weapons still cut through coalition shields. Ships on both sides exploded in silent bursts of light. They're adapting faster than I expected, Carter said, watching the tactical display. They're learning. The Void Collective ships began to reform, establishing new patterns to counter the chaos. Their superior technology was still a tremendous advantage. We've surprised them, but we're still outgunned, Wright said. We need more. Carter nodded. It's time for the Chaos Engine. He turned to Lieutenant Miller. Is it ready? The engineer nodded nervously. Ready, but untested. We built it based on 200-year-old plans. I can't guarantee it will work. That's fitting, Carter said with a grim smile. This whole plan is untested. Carter moved to a new console that had been installed on the bridge. It looked different from the sleek coalition technology around it. More basic, almost primitive. The Chaos Engine isn't a weapon in the traditional sense, Carter explained to Wright. It's a device that creates random quantum fluctuations in communication systems. How does that help us? Wright asked. The Void Collective ships communicate using quantum entanglement. Perfect, instantaneous communication that can't be jammed by normal means. Carter's hands moved over the controls. But quantum systems are sensitive to observation and interference. The Chaos Engine exploits that weakness. Carter activated the device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, on the tactical display, the Void Collective ships began to move erratically. Their coordination is breaking down, Jones reported, excitement in his voice. They can't communicate. Carter watched intently. The effect won't last long. Their systems will adapt and compensate. We have maybe 90 seconds. Wright didn't hesitate. All ships converge on the main Void Collective fleet. Hit them with everything we have. Across the solar system, coalition ships turned and accelerated toward the disorganized enemy. For the first time, the Void Collective ships were vulnerable. Their perfect coordination shattered by the Chaos Engine. The next 90 seconds were a blur of action. Coalition ships fired from all directions. The Void Collective, unable to coordinate their defenses, took hit after hit. Their black hulls, once seemingly invincible, cracked and exploded. On the bridge of the frontier, Carter counted down. 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. As he reached 0, the Chaos Engine's effect began to fade. The remaining Void Collective ships started to reform their communication network. Their movements became more coordinated again. But in those 90 seconds, the Coalition had destroyed nearly a third of the Void Collective fleet. More importantly, they had damaged the flagship, a massive vessel at the center of the enemy formation. "They're retreating," Jones announced in disbelief. "The Void Collective is retreating." The tactical display confirmed it. The black ships were pulling back, moving away from Earth at high speed. Carter leaned against the console, suddenly exhausted. They've never retreated before. Their algorithms don't include retreat as an option. Then why are they doing it now? Wright asked. Carter watched the enemy ships flee. Because we introduced something their algorithms couldn't process. Unpredictability. Chaos. Humanity. The bridge crew broke into cheers. For the first time since the Void Collective had appeared, they had won a battle. Earth was safe, at least for now. But Carter wasn't celebrating. He stared at the tactical display, watching the retreating enemy. "They'll be back," he said quietly to Wright. "They're adapting, learning. Next time, they'll be ready for these tactics." Wright nodded. "And we'll need new ones." Carter smiled slightly. "That's the human advantage. We never fight the same way twice." As the Void Collective disappeared from the solar system, Carter knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new kind of war. One where human unpredictability would be their greatest weapon. 2 weeks after the Battle of Earth, Benjamin Carter stood before the Galactic Coalition Council. The grand meeting chamber on the Coalition capital world of Arcturus Prime was filled with representatives from all 17 species. They looked down at him from their raised seats, their expressions ranging from respect to lingering doubt. Admiral Wright stood beside Carter. Both wore their formal uniforms. Behind them, the battle footage played on a large screen, showing how the scattered Coalition forces had defeated the seemingly invincible Void Collective. The council leader, a tall Arcturian with silver skin, leaned forward. "Captain Carter, the Coalition owes you a debt of gratitude. Your unconventional tactics saved Earth and gave us our first victory against the Void Collective." Carter nodded, but said nothing. He hadn't come here for thanks. However, the council leader continued, "We remain concerned about the methods used. Breaking established Coalition protocols puts our forces at risk." Carter couldn't stay silent at that. "With all due respect, following those protocols was getting your forces destroyed. The Void Collective had calculated and countered every standard tactic in your playbook." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some offended, some agreeing. Admiral Wright stepped forward. "The evidence is clear. The Void Collective ships are controlled by advanced AI systems. They learned our patterns and predicted our responses." Captain Carter's approach of unpredictability and chaos was the only thing they couldn't counter. The Delvian representative, his purple skin gleaming under the chamber lights, raised all 4 of his hands. "We have fought wars for thousands of years using proven tactics. Are we to abandon them based on one victory? No, Carter replied. We're asking you to expand them, to adapt, the same way humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy. Carter walked to the tactical display and brought up new images. The Void Collective is already changing. Our scans of their retreating ships showed they were updating their systems, learning from their defeat. Next time, they'll be ready for the tactics we used. And what do you propose? Asked the council leader. A new approach to fighting this war. One that combines the best of coalition tactics with the unpredictability and adaptability that humans bring to the table. Carter displayed his plan on the screen. It wasn't just a set of tactics. It was a complete reorganization of coalition forces. Smaller, more independent battle groups, each authorized to adapt and change tactics as needed. Communication systems that can't be predicted or decoded. And most importantly, officers who are encouraged to think creatively, not just follow the rulebook. The council members looked at each other. What Carter proposed went against centuries of coalition military doctrine. A Centauri representative shook her head. This would require a complete restructuring of our forces, training our officers to think like ... like humans. Exactly, Carter said, because that's what the Void Collective can't predict. Human unpredictability, human creativity, human determination when our backs are against the wall. Admiral Wright stepped forward again. We're not asking you to abandon your ways. We're asking you to combine them with ours. The Void Collective is still out there, and they'll be back, stronger and more adapted than before. The council chamber fell silent as the members considered the proposal. Finally, the council leader spoke. We will need time to discuss this. Such changes cannot be made quickly. Carter shook his head. We don't have time. Our scouts report the Void Collective is regrouping. They'll attack again within months, maybe weeks. Before the council could respond, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered to the council leader. His silver face showed concern. We just received word from our outpost in the Tau Ceti system. The Void Collective has been detected. Their fleet is larger than before, and they've changed their formation patterns. Carter looked at Wright. They're adapting faster than I expected. The council leader turned to Carter. It seems we have no choice but to try your approach, Captain. The Coalition hereby authorizes the formation of a new task force under your command. Carter hadn't expected this. Under my command? I'm retired. Not anymore, the council leader said. You've been reinstated at the rank of Admiral. Your mission is to prepare our forces for the coming battle and to develop new tactics the Void Collective cannot predict. 2 days later, Carter stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the USS Liberty. It was larger than the Frontier, with advanced weapons and shields. But more importantly, it had been modified according to his specifications. More flexible, more adaptable, more human. Admiral Wright had come to see him off. How does it feel? To be back in command? She asked. Strange, Carter admitted. I thought those days were behind me. The Coalition needs you, Ben. Humanity needs you. Carter looked at the crew working around him. They were a mix of species from across the Coalition, each chosen not for their ability to follow orders, but for their creativity and adaptability. The real test will come when we face the Void Collective again, Carter said. They'll be ready for our old tricks. Ben will need new ones, right? Replied with a smile. Carter nodded. That's the advantage of being human. We're always coming up with new tricks. As the USS Liberty prepared to depart, Carter thought about his farm back on Earth, the simple life he had built. Part of him missed it already, but another part, a part he had tried to ignore for 10 years, was excited for the challenge ahead. Void Collective thought they had the Coalition figured out. They had calculated every move predicted every response. What they hadn't counted on was the Coalition turning to a human for help. A species known throughout the galaxy for being unpredictable, adaptable, and incredibly stubborn when facing impossible odds. Admiral Carter were ready to depart, his first officer announced. Carter took his place in the command chair. Set course for Tau Ceti. Let's go introduce the Void Collective to some more human creativity. As the USS Liberty jumped to hyperspace, Carter knew the war was far from over. The Void Collective would return stronger and smarter than before. But so would they. Because that's what humans did best. Adapt, overcome, and find a way to win. Even when victory seemed impossible. Across the galaxy, other Coalition ships were already implementing Carter's new strategies. Officers were being encouraged to think creatively, to adapt to changing situations, rather than follow rigid protocols. The Void Collective had made one critical mistake. They had pushed the Coalition to the brink of defeat, forcing them to make one final call, to a human. Then everything had changed.